session, Cutting Through the Noise, How to Leverage Advisors to Fast Track Your Success.
So the guys at the back, we can sort of see you, but I didn't bring my telescope. Do you want to just come down a little closer? If we had 100 people here, that'd be fine, but let's make it a bit more of a fireside chat. Thank you.
Just checking out, I know it's unfortunately a bit pixelated. There was a better picture on the slide before, but the internet in here, I think, is not the very best, or maybe it's coming now. Anyway, this is me on the floor, scraping underneath a table 1 week into business. That was about 9-10 years ago. And I basically had no clue what I was doing. I have a master's degree in marketing communications and in international business management, then decided to go into food and literally learned everything from scratch. And what I wrote is how to not waste years and tens and thousands of dollars learning things the hard way, is because I did. I made lots and lots of mistakes straight from the start. The business went from $0 to $250,000 in revenue in its first quarter, employed 30 people. But the biggest mistake I made was that I took on a business partner and I did not vet her. I thought she was an absolute goddess. She had built this $40 million business in the same industry, so I trusted her. Problem was, she also set the margins, the prices, and I didn't even look at it. And about a year down the road and $80,000 worth of my personal cash burned in the business, we weren't getting anywhere. We were getting huge orders, huge turnover, shipping container loads to the US, and on paper it looked fine, but it wasn't. It wasn't fine at all. And I didn't realize. I didn't see it. And it took my sister-in-law, who's an accountant, and also my bookkeeper, to ask me the question, Julia, what is your exit strategy? How much longer are you going to let this go on for? And it was the point in my business journey where I went like, even my 18 hours of work every day are not going to make it work. So I made the hard decision and changed over my business into what it is now. And within a year of letting that go, I built a 7-figure brand on my own without the business partner. So that moment felt like I was a huge failure, burning through these $80,000, and it was me not getting the advice, me not vetting her properly. So it's just really important that you surround yourself with those people that know, that have been there, that know the industry. Another year further down the road, built my business, 15 staff again. At the time, I was making about $10,000 a day from my Meta ads that I was running. They were, back in the day, when they were so profitable. And overnight, my Facebook account got shut down. And that was it. My orders dried up instantly. I didn't know what to do with my staff. 15 people, and I'm sitting on the veranda, and I'm just crying, not knowing what to do. And that was the moment I took on a mentor. They taught me about SEO, about email marketing, and I learned to place 12 eggs into 12 baskets and not rely heavily on paid ads. So for me, there's a million other mistakes I made and that I learned along the way, but it just showed me how important it actually is to have an advisor.
I'll add from my own personal experience as well. I started off life as a tradie. My father did my apprenticeship, then shook my hand and said, right, off you go. He really couldn't explain business to me because he wasn't really a businessman. He was a craftsman. And I went to the Small Business Centre in Adelaide where I was living at the time and said, hey, I know I've got to register for stuff because I'm starting a business. I need some help. And they just pointed me to the brochure rack and said, take what you want. That was it. So I don't know how many of you guys have actually started a business yourself, or perhaps to get a bit of an idea, how many of you have been in business, say, 10 years or more? All right, a few of you, that's great, some veterans. How many of you are just thinking about starting or just in the early stages now? A couple, all right. So a bit of a mix. the thing that I'd say about business is that when you start a business, you start with certain skills that you have because it might be a type of business that you're interested in, but you don't know everything. And obviously you didn't, I didn't. And then, as they say, we learn the hard way. But there is also a smarter way to learn as well, and that's kind of what we want to really talk about today.
So yeah, we've got the jack of all trades, master of just some. So we're just going to roll with the story of Jack. This is what Jack is now facing. He had a really cool idea. He solved one of his personal problems, saw a gap in the market, thought this is awesome. And next thing he is learning TikTok, AI, Meta, you name it. We're just bombarded and we're just drowning in the flood of information, but we don't know what's the next step. What's the most important thing? What do we do? So that's the situation Jack finds himself in. And also, you take
I was just going to say before you even get to this one, that's a lot of noise. That's a lot of clutter. If you're the business owner or the main person that's kind of running the strategy in your business, you've got to do business business as usual, as they say, every day. You've got to pack the parcels, send them out. You've got to deal with paying the bills, keep up with the records. You've got to do that stuff anyway. And then you've got all this other stuff that you'd like to do because it's going to bring you more customers. It's going to help you expand your business. It's going to grow. But you just don't find the time. And I'm saying you don't find the time. I don't find the time. I find it very, very difficult. And I find myself ending up working weekends and after hours just to literally get all the things done on top of the running of the business. And unfortunately, this is probably quite a common experience, a common experience for a lot of business owners and senior managers. And we've got skin in the game. At the end of the day, it's our business if we're the business owner. Staff is a bit different. They come home, they clock off, they go home, they get paid for their time. That's all it. But it's a little bit different when you got skin in the game. With the next slide, so this sort of came from an analogy that I like to use about the frog in a saucepan. You see, the frog eventually, as that fire under him or the heat on the saucepan gets hotter and hotter, eventually becomes unbearable. But the frog can only see what he can see. And in this case, Jack can only see what he can see. Jack's a bit bigger than a frog, so he can see a bit more, but he can't see what's right under him. He can't see the fire. And it takes him to jump out of there, because it's so damn uncomfortable, to land on the bench and go catch his breath and then look back and go, you idiot. It's a fire under me. Of course it is. And it's like that in business for us as well. We only have our own perspective. We can only see what we see from the experience that we have. And that's why calling somebody else in is a good idea, because they have a different perspective. If you're married, your partner's going to see things in a different way to you. Sometimes it leads to arguments, but they have a different perspective, which is valuable because they can see things that we can't see. And that's one of the benefits, obviously, of advisor. Jack really needs to talk to somebody else.
Yeah, you just don't know what you do not know. And unfortunately, there's so much we don't know. And then the worry starts. You come to events like here, you see people doing all these amazing things, or you quickly run out of cash. You're not really making any profit yet. And like me, you work 18 hours a day and you go like, oh my God, I cannot sustain this. Why is this not working? You feel like you fall behind. The stress goes through the roof. You feel overwhelmed. You're not sleeping anymore.
Imposter syndrome as well sets in.
Huge one. I've been a consultant for a few years, and I swear to God, nearly every meeting I start with like, oh, I know I'm not that big yet. And I'm like, no one cares about how big you are. I care about what are your goals and how can we achieve that. And as we know, success looks different to everyone. Success for me looks like I can go on a horse ride in the afternoon and pick up my kids from school and have enough money to make choices. And it looks different for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something I see a lot is repeating problems. I am not a fan of that. I'm a fail fast, fail forward. We have to make mistakes. It's part of the business. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. If we don't stretch ourselves enough. But the failing fast and failing forward is important. We see the outgrowing systems, facing major decisions, needing that sounding board, and also running out of ideas. You just feel like, I've tried it all.
I spent a lot of years working at eBay with eBay sellers who had a great idea, found a good supplier, got a good price, niche in the market, found the first guy that found fidget spinners, would have made a fortune. And then suddenly everyone else copies. And it's not just limited to marketplaces that this happens. It happens in business. And I've spoken to some of you guys as well. And, you're like, competitors are copying us and how do we do it? Business never stops and never changes. But again, you've only got your own perspective. Especially if you're a solopreneur, you've only really got your own perspective. So the benefit of talking to others is important. So you can talk to your family and friends, and they'll be nice to you because they like you. That doesn't mean they're going to give you the best advice. They'll try to be gentle on you. Oh, yeah, we think it's a really good product. I mean, you've all seen those cringe-worthy auditions at Australian Idol and things like that, and the parents out there going, oh, they're amazing. And they're not. They're terrible, and they need a bit of reality. Sometimes in business, we need a reality. Like Julia said, fail fast, fail forward, meaning make the mistake, go in there, try something, and then it didn't work. Don't beat yourself up. Great, now we know that doesn't work. Next.
Yeah, just don't let it happen again. Yeah. That's the only thing to a mistake. It shouldn't happen twice.
Exactly.
All right, so obviously we're letting you know you should have an advisor. Jack also shouldn't have to do this alone.
Yeah. Right.
That's
I can't
you.
see this one.
Yes.
Okay. So this sort of plays into what I said a minute ago about, getting another perspective is very useful. If you want to know how to save on your tax, you don't go to your local butcher and say, hey, how do I save tax? You go to an accountant, right? You go to somebody that's got the expertise that you need. And in business, that's a little murky in some cases. Like if it's a legal matter, you go to a lawyer. If it's an accounting matter, you go to an accountant. Like that's kind of pretty straightforward. But business strategy, like who do you go to for that? Who do you go to work out what kind of packaging is going to work best for your products if you're a manufacturer? Who do you go to work out what sort of marketing is going to work best for your customers? And you might end up having to deal with 5, 10 different types of advisories or businesses or agencies that are actually going to contribute perspectives that can help you make those right decisions. There's always a risk that you can also lean too much into them and just surrender, kind of like you did at the beginning, and say, well, they've obviously got it figured out. They look good. They drive a nice car. They wear nice clothes. They've already got it figured out. So they obviously know what they're doing. I don't need to check them. And that's obviously, in your case, was kind of a pretty fatal mistake. But you learn and you didn't do it again.
Yes, that's about right. That is not going to happen again.
Yeah, there's some really good stats. So I'm having trouble seeing the screen here. So, yeah, that's cool. Thank you. Right, these are some interesting stats. Just over half of Australian small businesses report using an advisor. That's actually reassuring, except that it means that almost half are not. And that's okay. You might be a jack of all trades. You might be really experienced. You might have had many years in business and learned a lot and therefore not need as many advisors along the path. That's perfectly normal. But I find the other stat on the right side there also quite telling. Older people who generally would have more experience, you would say, are less likely to seek advice, and also businesses with no employees. So that's a solopreneur. Now that goes back to the whole, I've got to figure this out myself. Like people are going to think I'm a failure if I can't make money, and nobody can see how much, I can't see how much money any of you are making right now. It's not like you've got a big thing over your head saying, I make this. We look at people and measure people's success in business based on how they walk, how they talk, how they dress, how they drive, what other people say about them. But that's not success. As Julia said, for her, it's taking a ride on a horse. For me, it's being able to take my family on a holiday somewhere, up to the snow or doing something like that. So how do I actually get there? So yeah, that's interesting that a lot of these people don't seek advice very often.
You don't need to know everything, but you do need to know when you don't.
Yeah.
It's important that we remind ourselves, like you said before, you don't go to the butcher for certain advice, that there's people out there that can help us in those specific moments.
Yep.
And even just sitting down, talking the business through, having that different perspective. Like I was chatting with another advisor before and she said, oh, don't do hair salons. I was like, oh, funny you say that because just recently I sat down with someone who had a nail salon and she said, oh, I don't do it because I don't know anything about it. I was like, neither do I, but that is actually also cool because I come in, okay, so I'm a customer, so let's run me through the steps. I walk in, does someone greet me? What do they ask me? Do they offer me a glass of water? And we just ran through all the steps. We created standard operating procedures for each step so that when new staff comes in, this is your job, this is what you're responsible for, this is how I want you to make that person that walks through the room feel. But what does good actually look like in an advisor. And the number one on there is the number one advice I am taking myself as well. I do not take advice from someone who hasn't achieved what I want to achieve. At ZELLIS, we're all retailers ourselves. We all have our own businesses. We live it, we breathe it, we appreciate your time, every cent that you put in. We know how it feels. We know how to get there. We know what exactly not to do, how to get there, and it fast tracks you. It's just a different kind of advisory when you have been in your shoes already.
It's to speak to that a bit more. This is not a plug for ZELLIS, by the way, but just to speak that a bit more. You know, when you get customers to buy your product, we're talking about e-commerce, you're going to go to a marketing agency because they bring you the traffic, they bring you the customers, right? But at the end of the day, they're often, not all, often not focused on your profit. They're focused on how many numbers they get in their reports. You know, 50,000 this month, fantastic, we just doubled it, that's great, none of them are buying. So being able to take on somebody that's actually done what you want to achieve is really important. It's not just, oh yeah, we know how to drive traffic to your website, that's great. I know how to fill the bath too, but I always put the plug in first. So it doesn't work if you don't put the plug in. And that's kind of the idea. So it's the second idea here is that they speak human. By that, we just mean they speak your language. The first accountant I ever spoke to started speaking in accountant language, and he lost me at the first two sentences, and I wondered what I got myself into. I was about 19 at the time. It was a bit scary. So if you find that you have to keep asking them to repeat themselves, or can you say that a different way, then they're probably not the right person or agency for you to be working with. I have had clients of ours that I've known that have brought me reports from agencies saying, can you explain this to me? To which my answer is, you're paying them $5,000 a month, get them to explain it to you. Or leave, because they're just taking your money. If it's not actually bringing value to your business and you don't even know what they're doing, then I don't know that I'll be spending the money. And again, we've done the same thing as retailers. We've all made mistakes. We understand what it is to spend money because, yeah, it hurts. There's only limited amounts of it to go around.
And another one is they can implement. Words are just meaningless words if you do not implement. If you're great at implementing yourself, amazing, but it helps if your advisor already comes with a network of experts, with staff that are experts. I can tell you, you got to do SEO. But as we know, it can be a full-time job to do SEO for the business. So it's not going to help you to just sit through and listen to words. It has to be actioned. And if your advisor can help you, and when I say help you, it's not like you don't want the sales pitch. It's not like, oh, you should totally use like my expert in website design to do this. It has to come with a good explanation. I would never recommend doing something unless I have the data, the proof that that is necessary. I will always explain, if your conversion rate goes up by 0.2%, this means that, then that. And in easy words, you know, I like to break things down simple. At the end of the day, a business is supply and demand. Do you have the product to ship out? Do you actually have a customer who wants it? And then everything else kind of falls under those two pillars. And if your advisor cannot make it that simple for you to have that conversation and put things into easy to understand buckets or words, again, either hold that advisor accountable, have that conversation, mate, I don't speak that language, we got to change things up here. Yeah. Up to you, change the advisor. But yeah, having a network already knowing other agencies that can implement, other experts that can implement, and opening that network as well. Like for me, is like one of our clients is also in the food space, not a competitor, but same food space. So I opened my network of stockists to them. So that was a huge boost for them.
It's funny, in the early days when I started doing a lot of consulting myself, it was the one question or the one, question that actually scared me the most was, this is great. This is exactly what we need. Can you do it? And it was that moment that I realised my days of consulting were over. Because I didn't really know how to do some of the things that I was telling people to do. I kind of knew it was right and I could demonstrate it, I could show the returns and everything else, but I didn't actually know how to turn the machine on and connect this to that, and I had to learn very quickly. So yeah, since then, we've actually not only got the abilities, you know, within my skill set and within our business, but also where we don't have those skills, as Julia said, other businesses, other advisors, other people that are happy to contribute and have skills in areas that we don't. And I think that's important. You're not just going to take one advisor and they're going to run everything for you. I think that's a bit dangerous. Eggs, baskets, right? Yeah.
The trust me this works plays again on what I said before. I back things up with data. I have an opinion on things, but it is an opinion, it is an assumption. I'm big on A/B testing. Let's see if what I think is right is actually right for you. So I always say, without numbers, you're just another person with an opinion. So make sure they know what data to look for, what to measure. And then you're so right. I'm German, I'm extremely blunt, and I believe that if you do not say it as it is, you do a disservice to your client. If they have just paid you to help them, I will not just say, yep, awesome, let's do what you would like to do. It's not going to help. I've worked in many advertising agencies, and the biggest contrast that I've seen was one of the agencies. We had billion-dollar accounts. We looked after the international strategy of Apple, Pedigree, Schwarzkopf, huge accounts. And if one of the accounts would have been lost, the entire agency with 150 staff would have had to shut down. So the pressure that the bosses felt, I understood. But we would go into a meeting, we would present strategy 1, strategy 2, and the client would go like, can I please have this out of strategy 1 and this out of strategy 2? And I'm just thinking within myself, I was still a junior, so I wouldn't speak up in the meeting, but I'm just dying on the inside thinking that doesn't make any sense. If you run it that way, you're not going to succeed. But the boss said, of course, let us redo this for you and we'll be back in a day. Anyway, then I worked in another agency and the boss was my way or the highway. And he'd go like, as soon as the client would say like, oh, let's do this, and he wasn't in agreement with it, he would put his foot down. There's absolutely no way we're going to do this for you. That is not going to work. Let me show you how to make profit out of this. And this is how we should do it. Let's test that.
Yeah, that confidence is important. It can be bravado, of course, but that confidence is part of it. And I think as part of vetting a person or agency that you're going to deal with, it's really having a human conversation at the start and kind of feel them out. How do they respond? Ask them a couple of curly questions and see if they sort of sweat or hesitate or stumble. Because if they don't have the knowledge, then they might. If they do, they should be able to answer it easily. So that's a great question. We keep hearing that question. This is the answer. And you start to get a confidence with that as well. It's no different to choosing an accountant or a lawyer, to be honest. They're not all the same. They've got to be able to resonate with you the way that you communicate. And the last one on there is the same playbook for everyone. You may not know that they're using the same playbook, but if it's web design and you look at all their websites look the same with different colours, that's probably a giveaway. But again, ask around. Reputation is a really important part of especially advisory consulting. And in an e-commerce environment like Australia, which is quite small, if you get a bad reputation, you're gone. So, you know, people like us are also on our best behaviour all the time, as it were, because we know how easy a reputation can be damaged by somebody saying, yeah, I tried them and they ruined my business or whatever. So that's also another place that you can go for that sort of advice.
I can literally, by looking at Facebook ads now, pick the advisor. You see the same stuff over and over. It is like that. And like it says on the slide, what worked at $500,000 might not work at $5 anymore. So you have to have an advisor that can expand with you. And it's not a playbook. It's customized to your own needs.
Yeah, so a little bit like I was saying before, when you're teasing out whether you're going to work with somebody or an agency or another business or even a provider of some sort, you really need to get to know them. It's a little bit of a courtship going on. You're feeling them out, they're feeling you out. I mean, if they're just after money, then they're probably going to try and say yes to everybody. But at the end of the day, it's your business, assuming you're the owner or a senior manager, if not, and there's a lot riding on it. You're not asking them to advise you on something just because you've got nothing better to do. You've already problem solved a lot of things. You're now in an area where you're kind of beyond your knowledge and you need somebody else to lean in. So you've got to feel confident with all those things that we just saw on the last screen. And so asking a couple of questions, them asking you a couple of questions or you being clear on what the outcomes that you actually want is going to help you actually cut through that and really get the right result.
I love to be extremely specific when it comes to setting goals. I might want a horse out of this. That means I need to make $10,000. That means I need to increase my average order value by 12%. And I get there by doing X, Y, Z. I like to reverse engineer. Where do we want to be in 12 months? What do we have to do to get there in 12 months? But how does month 12 exactly look like? And set those goals in specific numbers.
If you don't have a vision, it won't, or as I like to say, if you don't have a dream, it won't come true. So there's no point just saying, I want to succeed. As we said before, success is different for each person and each business. It's not just about having more money. Maybe it is. Maybe that is the measure. But there's going to be a whole bunch of things that are sitting behind that. So you be really clear on what that is that you're actually going for. It's okay to have a stretch target. That's perfectly okay. As they say, shoot for the moon and land amongst the stars. That's fine. Or is it the other way around? So is it shoot for the stars and land on the moon? I'm not sure. I'll take either. The other one is, what have you already tried? I think this is important as well. We think this is important because in talking with somebody or an agency that you're going to work with, if they end up regurgitating back to you things that you've already done before that didn't work for whatever reason, that's a pretty indicator that they're probably not the right ones to work. So by you setting the tone firstly, or even the advisor asking you, so what have you tried? That's a good signal because they're actually trying to get that discovery to understand. You can't match the solution until you actually understand the problem. So any advisor that comes and says, oh, I know how to do that, yep, we'll get you set. It's $3,000 a month and we'll sort it all out for you. Run a mile. And maybe you've met some people like that as well. So, yeah, don't go there.
It can be super industry specific, right? Yeah. If we would have had success with someone doing something and then a guy like, oh, let's repeat it, and you say like, oh, no, I've already tried this, I'll also then ask qualifying questions because my absolute favorite sentence is, I've tried it all and nothing is working. Yeah. Well, how have you tried it? How much time have you given it? Into how much depth have you gone with this? Yeah. Have you just scratched the surface level? So yeah, like you said, like, you know, an advisor who asks many, many questions and listens well is a great vetting. We'll get to that in a second. And then, yeah, like, tell them what's your constraint? What is it that you can change, that you can't change? What's your budget? What's your team, time, supplier? You name it up front. Tell them. Give them a lot of information. Like when I work with clients, I make them do the homework of filling out questionnaires so that when I sit down with them and they're paying my time, I want absolute value for them. So I'm trying to get that information straight from the get-go because that doesn't cost you anything. And then the conversation is high quality because we know what problems need to be solved.
Yeah. In dealing with, we're talking about advisory and consulting, but let's broaden it and just say really any vendor or any partner that you're going to partner up with for your business. It could be a supplier, it could be a chat bot, could be a marketing agency, anything. Remember that the advisor may not be the person you're talking to. So sometimes these agencies employ very, very good salespeople that know exactly all the right things to say. They're very well rehearsed, they're very slick and very clever at saying the right things. And I've seen it happen a few times. Sometimes it works out because they are telling the truth, and sometimes they're not. And salespeople, it's very hard to tell exactly which is which, all right? I have come across agencies where they've had very, very good salespeople. One in particular I can think of that's no longer in business, thank goodness, but they had an 80% attrition rate. 80% of customers that signed up with them left, and they were a marketing agency. So their sales team were very good, but the advisors and the implementers were obviously not very good. So just understand who you're speaking to as well. When you're booking that meeting, are you actually speaking with the person or at least one of the team that you're going to be dealing with directly? If you're just speaking with a salesperson in the front end, I don't really think that's good enough. I think you actually need to have a talk at that level.
Yeah. With 3 minutes left on the clock, this is a good one to take a picture of, how to actually vet the advisor. A few of those things we've mentioned already, but I'll just leave it up for 2 seconds. And where do we actually find a good advisor? And word of mouth is still the thing. The amount of times I've had conversations here like, oh, what SEO agency do you use? Who does your email marketing? To see if they've created success for someone else is obviously still number one, will always be. Industry networks, accredited professionals, industry associations, LinkedIn, check their reviews. Yep. How have they performed? Possibly even call, a previous client of theirs.
Yep. And by the way, it's not the Yellow Pages. So you don't go looking up an advisor and saying, advisor, Yellow Pages, cool, they're the first one listed, go to them. I'm not saying don't talk to those businesses, but word of mouth really is the strongest. I have to say in our business, we don't really do a lot of advertising. We come to events like this and we love it. We love to talk to people and we'll always talk to people. But most of the work that we get is through referrals, which there's not even any money involved. It's not even a referral fee paid. It's just because, you need to talk to these people because they're good at that. And we'll do the same. We're not good at everything as a business ourselves. And we'll say, you need to go and talk to these guys. They're really good at that. So yeah, that sort of honesty, I think, is a good thing. As the slide says, bad advice is definitely more expensive than no advice. So you really do need to vet who you're working with and make sure that they're going to have the expertise that you need and they're going to be able to communicate in your language and with relevance for your business, and they understand what the problems are that you're trying to deal with, what the solutions are that you're trying to solve.
Yeah, I learned it the hard way. As I said, like my first year in business cost me 80 grand, and that was not a nice feeling to burn the family cash. And but it's not just the money that you lose; it's also your time. It's the missed opportunities. There's a lot of things that can go wrong.
Absolutely. So Jack's an imaginary person, in case you didn't figure out. I don't know if we've got a client called Jack. Actually, we do. We do got one client called Jack. ZELLIS as a business, and this is not a sales pitch, so apologies if it sounds like that. It's not meant to be. ZELLIS, since we started about 10, 11 years ago, people would constantly ask me, what's ZELLIS? What do you do? And I couldn't answer that in one sentence or two, sometimes even in a paragraph. It would take me half an hour to explain it. And it wasn't really until much later, probably in the last year or two, maybe at the most, that we've started to understand that we really are actually advisors as a start. That's where we lead, because all the things that we do, it's not like if you want SEO, I don't know, we need SEO, we need more traffic to our website. Can you guys help? Yes, we can. Why do you need more traffic to your website? And straight away you're like, huh? What do you mean, why do I need more traffic to my website? I need to make more sales. What do you want to make more sales for? I've done this to clients or prospects, and they're sitting there scratching their heads going, what are you talking about? So what do you want more sales for? Huh? Well, I mean, business. Yeah. What do you want more sales for? Well, we need more profit. Bingo. You've got to understand that sometimes what you think you want is not actually what you want. And I remember saying to one client early on, you get $1 million turnover, because that's what he said he wanted. I want $1 million turnover. And I said, I could show you how to get $1 million in a week and you'd be bust the next week. Or I could show you how to, because you're only going to keep $0 of it, or you're going to keep $1 of it. I could show you how to make $2 and keep $1. Which would you rather do? All right. So the point is, again, understanding what the problem is you're trying to solve is very, very important. So yeah.
If you want to be like Jack, so it's a pretty cheesy joke, but we do free advisory sessions. You can sit down with Ian, Tim, myself, Sam. As I said before, we are retailers. We're in the trenches. We have our finger on the pulse. We know what's working in our businesses. We're all about less chaos and more checkouts. Like Tim mentioned multiple times, profit first. Yep. Anything you do has to make sure there's more money for you at the end of the day. Yep. Would love for you to also come to the booth. We are also conducting free product page audits, and they're not your normal product page audit. I'm big on buying psychology. One of the things I specialized in early is neuromarketing and knowing how the brain makes buying decisions. So the audit will be from a perspective of what's your value proposition, how are you communicating that, are you actually showing the problem that you're solving, or are you talking about your product and the product features that no one actually really cares about, and it's kind of like a secondary thing. So feel free to come to the booth. If you're just passing the booth, then take a get the link for the free product audit. It's on the banner there. And thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of the day.